Australian people of Reddit, how big does a spider have to be for you to consider it big? One of the common spiders we have is the huntsman. They can get quite large and pretty hairy. The thing is though, the huntsman is pretty friendly, and is one of the few spiders that don't hunt with the web. Instead it crawls around hunting and will kill the nasty venomous spiders we have around. So the chances are if it's a big spider it's going to be your friend. And a much smaller spider is the one you want to look out for. TLDR, big spider is your fuzzy friend. Small spider will mess you up. Yeah, we usually leave them in our house, or relocate them outside. We had one we just let stay for a while, because it wasn't causing issues. My friend who hates spiders really doesn't want to come here. You will get the occasional asshole though. In 2 years of living on this farm, I've only had one aggressive huntsman. It circled above my head on the roof for a while, ran near Daddy Longlegs, who went in to attack it, and I guess felt like I was in charge of those other spiders cause the fucker jumped at my face. It was hand-sized, and I jumped and screamed like a little girl. It kept coming after me. I went to bed only for my cat to chase it under there, and it crawled up to greet me. I whacked it with a drink bottle and it went away. Then as I'm laying in bed browsing Reddit, without my glasses on, it moved quietly above my head. In the moment it took me to sit up and reach for my glasses, it landed on my pillow. Phone went flying, and I whacked it again, several times, with a drink bottle. I bug-bombed the room the next day cause that fucker wasn't dead yet. I found it had crawled out from under my bed, but didn't get much further than that. So yeah, usually docile and they take out dangerous spiders, but I still don't want to be intimate with them. I was once in Australia checking out the insect, small crawly animal section of a zoo, or maybe some kind of animal refuge or something similar, and there was a display behind glass for each insect in their habitat. One such display was a huge spider hanging out on a car dashboard. WTF, that means one should expect this thing to be living among humans by default. My Australian friend who was with me saw the same display and casually remarked that the spider was small, much smaller than the one that they found in their bedroom. We have huntsmen in Japan too. I've had a few in my apartment in Tokyo, though those weren't bigger than 15 centimeters max. They get pretty big here if they survive the winter, especially in the countryside. I think the biggest one I saw in Kyushu was a little under 30 centimeters. It was a monster. They pop up a lot inside during the rainy season. The redback was also imported accidentally. You see them sometimes. The spiders aren't the scary ones though. I once had a killer hornet nest in my balcony shed that I didn't notice before winter. They were sleeping. Thank fuck. Japan is full of huge insects, but I think like Australia, if you're a tourist you're not that likely to spot them. The huntsman spiders are scary AF because they gallop around like demented gazelles and sometimes climb up your leg when you try to shoo them outside. But if you've got 2 or 3 huntsman brothers in your house you don't have a bug problem otherwise. They're the vigilante heroes of the bug scene in Oz. It's the scary little fuckers you need to worry about. Redbacks and funnel webs, not cool. There's a veritable shed load of misinformation in this thread. The biggest spiders in Australia would probably be from the golden orb weaver, huntsman, and tarantula families. None of them are considered dangerous to humans. The only spiders whose bites have resulted in human deaths are redbacks and funnel webs. But there have been no deaths since the antivenoms were developed in 1956 and 1980. Respectively. Redbacks have taken well to human habitation and so educating people about where they live, under pot plants, cladding, etc., when they're active, night, and their temperament, shy, retiring, is important. But a bite from one will often see the patient go home and wait to see if symptoms develop. Funnel webs are treated more seriously, and a bite from one requires a pressure bandage and immobilization of the limb. Same as for venomous snakes. Unlike redbacks, funnel web males do go wandering in the warmer months looking for a mate, so again, education is paramount, knowing when they're on the move. Late spring to early autumn, where they like to hide, boots left outside, anywhere dark, and whether the Sydney final web even lives in your area. All deaths prior to the end of an most likely were due to Atrax robustus. I'm an invertebrate zoologist and tarantula breeder, salesperson. A hand size is either Trichonphyladulas, golden orb weaver, kinda common, or Selenocosmia crassipes, Australian whistling tarantula, extremely rare for your regular person to see. It's also extremely rare that you will, or even me, will see a spider that can put you in danger. Even rarer that you'll see a spider that can kill you. There are a few genus that can kill you, mostly Missulina, most spiders, Atrax, genus of funnel webs including the Sydney funnel, Hydrancore, other funnel webs. There are so many genera of spiders in Australia that the general public think can damage you, but it's just a myth. Take these other comments with a pinch of salt. Most people don't know shit about spiders. That it is rare to see a deadly spider is simply not true for significant parts of Sydney. Funnel webs, while not common, can be seen regularly. They turn up a lot in swimming pools, particularly after rain. We get at least 2 or 3 every summer that the pool filter misses. If one goes looking at night in the right areas, you can see their eyes glow in the torchlight. I was driving to school in high school one morning in my tiny hatchback and went to put my sun visor down. It was such a small car that you sort of had to turn your head to the side so it wouldn't hit your head on the way down. When it flipped down, there was what looked like a white-haired huntsman spider covering the whole visor. Now less than 10 centimeters, tilde 4 inches, from my head. I was going around 70 km/h, 40 miles per hour. And couldn't easily pull the car over, so I just slowly flipped the visor up and tilted my seat back and drove to school. I never saw that spider again, but it was really common that they would come into the car for warmth, I guess. Size doesn't matter, species does. Orb weavers in the garden can have a body like a golf ball and a 10 centimeters leg span, but they're harmless. You just walk around them. Huntsmen on your ceiling can have a body like a squished tennis ball and a reach bigger than a man's hand, but again they're great. They're all named Kevin and they eat cockroaches. Redbacks barely make it to grape-sized, but they can fuck you right up. You might not die, but you're gonna be in hospital for a few days in great pain. The properly deadly ones are funnel webs, which aren't a whole lot bigger than golf ball size, legs included, but they're built like a battlemech, and there's no doubt in anyone's mind that they're trouble. I live in the Gold Coast hinterland. One night on my way home, I slowed my car down as I thought I saw a small mammal on the road, and I didn't want to hit it, as you do. It turned out to be a Queensland bird-eating spider, also known as Selenocosmia crassipes or the Queensland whistling tarantula. The shadow of the headlights made it look like something out of a horror movie, but even still, it was at least 20 centimeters in span. Up until then, I didn't even know that they existed. To this day, I haven't considered a spider to be big by comparison. Spread your fingers out like you're trying to show the number 5. I'm pretty sure the big spider from my childhood was a little larger than that. Of course, this is only an estimate. I must admit, however, that while I make a habit of educating people about how the nightmare creatures we have here usually aren't actually that dangerous, I saw a very tiny boy today and lost my shit, so yeah, anything is pretty big. Lived in house most part of my life until 2021. The last house lived in had lot more spiders than any other houses which we rented as me and my mates. This happened to be a house which was rented by a bunch of druggies before. So they refused to pay the rent and somehow got evicted, and this house was on listing for years until me and my mates found it. They said some person died in that house too. We never cared any of that and moved anyway. The only thing we couldn't get rid of was spiders. They were everywhere. Small ones which couldn't do much of a damage. Not the redbacks, just regular ones. Once I've seen a damn tarantula skipping away, had me work boots on and I stomped on it. And it was the size of my palm. Aussies are the best group of people I've met, inarguably. I know whites tend to be racist towards others and such. If Aussies were on the place where America is, world would be a much cooler, drunk place. If you're Aussie, you know what I mean, mate. Welp, I'm an arachnophobe, but I'm also Aussie, bush kid, so whilst all spiders scare the shit out of me, I'd only call it big if it was a large huntsman, or big for a dangerous kind. Common huntsmans would be about my adult hand span. Big huntsmans, like the ones you see eating mice, they can be dinner plate sized. I've seen some massive redbacks and funnel webs, whitetails, mouse spiders, wolf spiders, trapdoor spiders, golden orbs. I hate those fuckers. They move so fast and make the most creepy fucking noise. My skin is crawling just talking about it. I'ma need a shower with some orange soap on a Brillo now greater than. I live rural, and further rural you go the bigger the huntsman. Generally for me I don't get freaked out unless they are bigger than my hand. I saw a bird-eating spider in Queensland once and didn't like the look of them. Also golden orbs get quite big but usually build their web in an inconvenient place like near entrances, and sometimes when it's dark you forget and walk into their web and that's a horrible feeling. If you see me dancing and screaming outside my front door this is usually why. I think for me it's more about the thickness of the spider. I've seen spiders smaller than daddy long legs but my goodness they were so thick it freaked me out. Frown. Gross story time. I once was grabbing something from my closet and a really thick spider jumped out of the clothes and onto the wall of the closet to the floor. Through automatic reaction I squished it and green juice splattered everywhere all over my closet doors and walls. I was pretty nervous about huntsman spiders when I moved to Australia 5 years ago. The first day I arrived and went to sleep in my service department was like the scene from Aliens where Ripley and Newt sleep and a face hugger is released in the room. I was convinced it was going to happen to me. It didn't though, and I first encountered a huntsman 2 years later when I was in the shower and felt something on my leg. Looked down and a huntsman is crawling up it. Freaked out and managed to trap it in a Tupperware, only because he was wet and slow to move. As soon as he dried off he was fast as lightning and really angry about being in the Tupperware. I promptly threw him out the window into the garden and assumed the fetal position. The few I've seen since are equally as skittish when you try and catch them. I know they aren't dangerous but I can't stand their unpredictable movements and cheetah speed. When it's too big to trap in a glass so I can transport it outside. By glass I mean drinking glass or cup or tumbler or schooner or something like that. That's not leg size either. I've caught some quite large huntsmans before and they all pull their legs in once they realize they are under the glass cup. As to how to keep it in the glass, just slide a piece of paper or catalog or something between the glass cup and the floor/wall/roof and they pretty quickly head to the other end. Spider brothers are fine, even the larger ones. I try to fight back against the everything in Australia wants to kill you meme because it scares people off from visiting. Honestly, Australia is a great place to visit, although it is a long trip from pretty much everywhere. The wildlife really isn't that bad here. As a tourist you are unlikely to run into anything. I've lived here over 30 years in a sheltered suburban city existence mostly and seen a snake maybe 2 or 3 times in my life. Spiders you might see occasionally, but if you're just visiting you may not see any at all depending on where you go. All these paid actors from Australia talking about spiders like they're the same as dogs or cats to the rest of the world. Bullshit. I don't want to find a spider in my coffee cup or in my bedroom or shower or anywhere indoors no matter how harmless they are. I'm not scared of spiders here where I live, but they are just annoying and don't contribute to the peace of mind. That'd be 1000x worse in Australia. Size of your hand. We don't have those where I live. I'm English farmer but I live in Australia. I was surprised how big the spiders were. I put on my hoodie to go to work and I felt something crawling in my hair. I ripped off the hood and spider was in my hair. It was about as big as my palm. But it's not only big spiders you should worry about. Small ones like redbacks and funnel webs are probably going to make you sick. We have large huntmans in the house I leave them they eat the flies. It's the drop bears you have to really worry about, much more dangerous than the spiders. It's not the big ones to worry about mate. It's the little bastards you have to look out for, like redbacks. I used to play squad a lot and was talking to this one guy who said his mate in the army went to America for exercises and ended up having to be flown back to us because he got bitten by a redback over there, and of course they didn't have anti-venom. Australia is taking over, lads, but no one has died from a redback bite for the last 50 years. It depends on the species. We get to recognizing a few types, and big is relative to the norm. So a huntsman has to be the size of your face before it's a big un. But if you saw a redback nearly straddling your coffee cup, that'd be a biggie too. Bear in mind that, if you're speaking Australian, once they reach a certain size it goes the other way. A spider the size of a car would be a little bugger. Big enough that I can't kill it on my first attempt. I'm generally up if it ain't bothering you. Leave it alone, person, and I'll happily redirect spiderwebs elsewhere in the garden and leave the daddy long legs occasionally around the house. They love eating ants, but once we start talking spiders that make me feel unsafe, they have to go as quickly as possible. I see lots of people saying hand-sized, and honestly that's massive. As someone who is pretty terrified of spiders, not arachnophobic per se, just antsy, no, I'd reckon about the length of your pinky. Thankfully, most of the big spiders are harmless. Doesn't stop the huntsman and the daddy long legs. Yes, I know, from looking like absolute devils though. Depends on which type of spider it is. There's a difference between a big redback, venomous asshole spiders, and a big daddy long legs, harmless goofballs. But in general I judge of how easily I can squish it with a shoe. If the legs stick out from under the shoe, it's a big un. A big daddy long legs, to me, has a chunky abdomen. They get squished if they get too close to me. A big redback can be any over the size of a 10-cent piece. They get squished, and then smeared across the pavement a bit, before being wiped up and chucked in the outside bin. A big huntsman, well, that's any size huntsman really. They get relocated, by my husband, to a tree outside. A big whitetail spider is the same as the redback, also squished, smeared, wiped up, and disposed of. We get these chunky black house spiders where I live too. They're all roughly the size of a 20-cent piece, with thick legs. They get squished if too close. I've only ever seen one funnel web, and that was from a distance. So, all funnel webs are now considered huge and need to be killed with fire. Thankfully I moved away from the East Coast, so those guys can fuck off. I wish the rest of the world had a better understanding of the spiders here. They're not all bad. If they're able to be squished by a shoe, they're not really that scary. We've got a few species of spider usually. The medium-sized ones that make pretty webs are mostly harmless. The small ones that make little tangly webs in small spaces have a chance of being very bad. The big ones that run on walls generally aren't aggressive and are brothers, and the really big ones that crawl on the ground are life-threatening. But none of that really registers right as you see the thing. So a good rule of thumb is, if it's big enough to scare you, then it's bloody massive. If it isn't big enough to scare you, then it's just a tiny little bugger and the rest of you are weenies for worrying about it. Huntsmen absolutely are probably most are notorious about with their size being around the palm or hand. However, I've seen believe it be some sort of funnel web, making a web at an APCO, seemed to be the size of a small dinner plate next to them pump. Honestly, I completely understand the desire to burn our country sometimes. It's not the big ones you need to worry about. The funnel web spider and the redback spider are relatively small, but are the most dangerous species. Having said that, I once flicked a large wolf spider off my window with a broom handle and it made a loud thud when it hit the ground. Giants. When it comes to the most venomous spiders in the world, Australia's spider reputation is bigger than its bite. We all knows. Well, you know, just a while back a death in the late April 2016 was the country's first recorded spider-caused death since 1981. The huntsman spiders are scary AF because they gallop around like demented gazelles and sometimes climb up your leg when you try to shoo them outside. But if you've got 2 or 3 huntsman brothers in your house, you don't have a bug problem. Otherwise, they're the vigilante heroes of the bug scene in Oz. It's the scary little fuckers you need to worry about. Redbacks and funnel webs, not cool.